Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of the Conscious Yogi podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Virgo, and I am so happy that you are here to have this discussion with us. Today, we will be talking about insecurities and how to work on and I mean, never being insecure again. Okay. But we're gonna be realistic, we're human, and sometimes there are gonna be insecurities, but your insecurities should never control you and should never be the basis or foundation of the moves that you make. So, listen, we don't play about insecurities around here. Sometimes a little insecurity can be healthy, to not oversell or do too much, but at the end of the day, for the most part, a lot of insecurities hold us back. Again, I'm your host, Danielle Virgo, on all platforms on Instagram, on YouTube, on TikTok. And on this podcast, in this space, we are powerful women who hone our power, who are autonomous, and who work on being sovereign. Yes, yes, yes. All of my witches, my ethereal goddesses, my priestesses, my empresses, my aliens, y'all are all welcome here. Okay. So let's jump right into it. Now, listen, I can't forget, I'm a yogi, and I always like to tie in yoga into this like space. Like, I love yoga. Yoga has been a big transformation for me. It has transformed not only my body, but mostly my mind. Yoga is a spiritual practice based in Hinduism, and it really is all about aligning your spirit with your soul, which some people call it spirit, and with your physical form, like balance of all the things. And there are so many things about yoga that I can't even begin to explain. Um, but I am a certified yoga instructor, so I do like to incorporate certain yoga asanas and yoga poses into my conversations. And the theme of today is goddess pose. We are talking about insecurities, and I want us to get into our goddess energy, okay? Get into our confidence, shred the insecurities, work through them as new insecurities or something that a insecurity that you may have not been aware of arise, you'll have the tools to work through that. So without further ado, we're going to get into it. So I wanted to start with, let's define insecurity. And so insecurity, if you Google it, will say it's uncertainty or anxiety about oneself, lack of confidence, or feelings of inadequacy. And there are so many things in this life that we can be insecure about, things that can range from something really simple and minuscule to something that can really affect our day-to-day life, how we interact with other people, and even our internal dialogue on how we interact with ourselves and how we speak to ourselves. Um, I've never been a super insecure person, but there are certain things that make me insecure or that I can be insecure or self-conscious about. Um, as is for all of us. We're all human. We come into this plane of existence with no information, and we have to not only learn it, but deprogram and deconstruct everything we've been taught, the conditioning and programming from birth. Okay. That's a recipe for insecurity, and all of us will be able to experience it. And I like to be forthright. I like to be open. I like you all to know who I am, and hopefully I get to know who you all are as well. I'm not a person who struggle with a lot of insecurities, but I would say one of my insecurities could possibly be I suffer from, well, let me speak like I got good sense, okay? Like I'm someone who is coming from a high consciousness place. Um I have dealt with insecurity, but insecurity do not run my life. I have been insecure about my body and more of the sense of my relationship with it rather than whether anybody else enjoy it. Like, I've never been a person who followed the crowd. I've never been a person who did what everybody else did. I'm more of a person that's more inclined to do the exact opposite of what everybody else doing just because everybody else is doing it. Like, I don't want to be a follower. I don't want to be a person who just blindly does what everybody else do to fit in. Like, that's just not me. So a lot of my securities are more so based around how I feel about myself. The things that's been instilled in me that I work on that affect me, either like imposter syndrome, you know, not only knowing that I have something to offer this world, but continuing to have the courage to actually put myself out there. Are people going to take me seriously? Are people going to listen to one of my biggest triggers is, and I don't mind saying it because my triggers are mine and other people don't control how I react. I do. But one of my biggest triggers is feeling not understood, and I know there would be people who would hear that and intentionally but they're going to do that anyway. So it don't really matter. But one of my insecurities and one of my triggers are feeling like people don't understand or people misconstrue what I'm saying. And so, even in my relationships or with my significant other, with my partner, with my parents, with whomever, like sometimes you know, I am one of those people who blame their zodiac sign on everything, but I'm a Virgo. So I can be very matter of fact. I don't do things in haste. I do things after studying and after really thinking about it first. And so I filter myself. I think about things that I don't say anything ever that I don't mean. Ever. Y'all hear me? I don't ever say anything that I don't mean. So, the things that I say are well thought out and filtered and thought out and filtered and thought out again. And so when I say something, I filter it several and several times and it doesn't land. And that's also an ego thing, I think. But when it doesn't land, it really can trigger me. And this is something I've been as recently as last week, like understanding because and I had to go back into, the depths of my experience in this life to figure out why are you so triggered by people understanding you when you literally know what perception is. And so, but that does not stop this human from humaning. And that does not stop me from, not from being irritated when I deliberately am very specific and careful with my words and people still don't get it or people still don't understand, but people are coming from a different place. And so I have to be okay with that. And that kind of thing really makes me insecure because a lot of what I do and a lot of what I bring revolves around me speaking. And so that means that I need to communicate in a way that it lands with people, communicate in a way that is compassionate and empathetic and sympathetic towards people so that it will land. There will always be people that don't understand you. Danielle, she says as she look in the mirror, and you have to be okay with that, right? I have to be okay with people not understanding me or with people deliberately misconstruing my words to try to trigger me. But I have worked on that so much on my emotional intelligence and things like that, where it's really not, it doesn't bother me more so about people misconstruing my message. It's more, why am I not communicating in a way that you're getting it? And that's really a personal problem. That's not for me to, you know, project onto other people. But I did find out while we talking about me, I did find out, through a lot of search and watching and researching that it stemmed from my childhood. I remember feeling unheard by my mother. And my mother is a Taurus, so stubborn bull. So I remember specifically one day as a teenager being like starting to ask my mom to repeat what I said to make sure she understood. And I still do that to this day. So I had to go back and be like, okay, this is really bothering you. Like you're really getting triggered and hurting people's feelings because somebody is not understanding what you're saying. And that just means I need to figure out a better way to say it. And so I remember I had to go back into my childhood, like, where did this start? What could this be from? And this is going to lead me into another section that I wanted to talk about today, which is how you can start working on your insecurities and how you can start getting to a place where they don't control you. They're not the foundation for the decisions that you make or the moves that you make. For a lot of us, that starts in our childhood. Another insecurity that I have had in the past, or I don't even like to use my body as an insecurity, more about being self conscious. I prefer that when talking about my relationship with my weight, my relationship with my body is more self-conscious, defines it a little bit more of than insecurity, but I think insecurity can be appropriate at some times. And so I did a lot of work on that because that's a thing that's very big, it's very physical. It's something that people see when they see you. People don't see my trigger about not being heard when they just see me and we're not engaging in conversation. And so for both of those things, for an example, I had to go back to my childhood. And so the first thing that I have about working on, never being insecure again is the baseline for whatever you're uncertain about is lack of confidence in whatever area. So the first thing you can do is go as deep as you can go. Some will call this shadow work. Go as deep as you can go, as early as you can remember. And the more you meditate, the more you do things that help you expand your awareness and your consciousness, the further you will be able to go and, you know, unlock memories and unlock feelings and unlock things that you've experienced in your life that you may have forgotten about that can help you work through these things. So, one of the first things that you can do is as you go deep into yourself, start asking yourself questions like, where did this start? When was the first time I felt this feeling or felt this trigger? Or when was the first time I experienced that? And start with your childhood. I say you can either start with your childhood and work your way to present day, or start present day and work your way from childhood. Now, particularly with me, with my body image insecurity or self-consciousness, I started from childhood to present day. With my not being heard, I started from present day to childhood, right? Because present day is something that I, you know, it's being brought up currently by whoever I'm engaging with. And I need to work on this now. Like, why is this affecting me right now? This particular situation that I'm experiencing with this person, why is this happening right now? And so then I went back to my childhood, went back through the timeline to figure out, okay, when have I felt this? And the more you do this, the more you're more conscious and your awareness, and the more you develop that relationship with yourself, the easier and quicker these things will be done. Like, my relationship with my body was very prevalent. That took me some years to work through, to get to the other side. This particular situation with my triggers about not being heard was literally in like maybe an hour, like, or less. Like, I literally, because once you expand your awareness and your consciousness, the downloads just come. Things just pop into your mind. When really, I watched a video yesterday from the Alchemist that said, I believe it was Alchemist, where they were saying, it's not that it popped in your mind, it's that you have lived many lives, you have many universe experiences, and you're just connecting to those experiences. You're connecting to those other versions of yourself, the lessons that you've learned, the things that you've experienced from the ether, and they're coming to you now. It's from your own experience and things that you already know that's in your Rolodex of your mind, of your spirit, of your higher self, and you're able to pull from that. And so for me, that makes it a lot faster. The process for certain things can happen a lot faster because you're more aware, you know yourself better, you know your triggers more, and you create a process to work through triggers. You create a process to things that you say. So, like, for an example, my process whenever I see something triggering online, we can be in comment sections or see videos that's triggering online. And even if I'm typing a comment, I'm typing, I'm like, what's the point of this? Do this person actually care? What am I going to get out? This is my favorite question. What am I going to get out of this interaction? Is this interaction going to, benefit me? Is it going to help me grow? Is it going to help raise my frequency? If not, girl, erase it, keep scrolling, right? So I have certain questions that I ask myself when I'm experiencing something in a moment to gather myself together, if you will. And so for me, it just depends on what that thing is. When it was with my body image issues or weight issues, I went back to my childhood to do the math. And I went back to an experience I had with my dad who made me get on a scale when he saw that I was gaining weight. And that went on for maybe a few weeks, a couple of months, and then it stopped because I said something to my mother and my mother says to him and they never mentioned it again. I've never heard of this again. But that few months in my early adulthood, how do I say effed up the relationship I had with food, the relationship I had with my body until like 5 years ago. I'm not even gonna say five. It was more like during the pandemic, like 2021, like literally. So that was something that I knew I needed to start from my childhood because I kind of knew where it started. Like that was a very pivotal experience for me and a very pivotal time for me. And I remembered it. So I had to start there and then work my way up to come to the other side. And so that is something that no longer triggers me. I'm still actively working on being triggered around, not being heard or being misunderstood, but I'm also working on actively opening my heart and coming from a heart space because that is how I will continue to change and grow and develop and elevate my own existence. Everything that we do, everything that we say to ourselves matter. And so it's very important that we work through these things so that our inner dialogue change. The way we speak to ourselves, the way we speak about ourselves change. Everybody's talking about manifesting. More people are talking about spirituality and esoteric arts and things like that. And if you are into those things, and most women who engage with me are to some degree, a lot of aren't, and that's okay. But if you are into those things, then you know that if you want to manifest something, if you want to you can call anything into your orbit, into the physical plane that you want. You just have to get on that frequency. You just have to work your way to that frequency. And the way that you speak to yourself, your internal dialogue will do more damage or more good than anything you will ever, say or perform or whatever, because your inner dialogue is directly connected to what's in you is come out. As within, so without. As above, so below. So we have to be careful about the way we form our sentences. Words are spells. And so even you will hear me on the regular, correcting myself and certain things that I say. Like I was, instead of saying, I suffer from imposter syndrome, it's like either I used to suffer from imposter syndrome or I just find a new way to say it, but I'm not calling in that energy. I'm not calling in that frequency. I don't want to be on that frequency. I'm not on that frequency. Instead of saying that, say at I used to deal with imposter syndrome. I'm delivered. Okay. um, and so either choose whether you want to start from childhood and work your way to present day or start from present day and work your way to childhood. Pick out the thing that you want to work on and that you're insecure about, and then really think about where it started. Listen, one of my biggest things, hot takes on life and on hacking ourselves, is that we have the answers. Like nobody knows you more than you. No therapist, no spiritual guide, no medium, no whomever, no tarot card reader. Nobody can read you better than you. The only person who is with you 24/7 in your head is you. So you have the stored memories. I don't have your stored memories. You don't have my stored memories. So just the same, it's insane for me to get upset if somebody doesn't understand me when they're not in my head. So it's the same thing. And so what does insecurity look like and how does insecurity show up? Because a lot of times we can be insecure and don't even realize it. It can show up as lack of confidence. It can show up as fear. It can show up as anger. Okay. A lot of people's insecurities show up as anger. And a lot of people use that anger to project and throw on you, whether that's in a comment section, whether that's your mama, whether that's your spouse. When they feeling insecure about something, they will project that on you onto you. How many women have shared their experiences of being low-key emotionally abused because they made more money than their man? Because they were too attractive and was getting too much attention. Meanwhile, she in love with him, but he worried about what the next dude thinks or somebody's like those kinds of things. It can show up as shame. Shame is one of the silent killers because so many of us experience shame, but shame, people don't talk about shame very much. People don't talk about the side effects of shame. And so a lot of your insecurities will come up in shame, in hiding who you are, in hiding your body, in hiding your gifts, in hiding the fact that you might be the black sheep and you want to embrace that. Hiding from the fact that you no longer hold the same beliefs that you once did. Hiding because you're ashamed that you no longer fit in the same spaces that you used to fit in, right? Like shame is the silent killer. People know about anger, people know about fear, people even know about guilt. But shame will get you because shame will cause you to, what's a good word for um boxing in who you are? Shame will have you stifling yourself. Shame will have you belittling yourself and allowing yourself, shrinking yourself for other people so that you don't stick out when it's your soul's purpose to stick out, when it's your soul's purpose to go against the grain and do the exact opposite of what everybody else in your family is doing. Shame will keep people in relationships that they are miserable in, that is preventing them from growing because they don't want to be embarrassed that their marriage didn't work. They don't want to be embarrassed that, they feel like a failure. There are so many different places shame show up and people are so unaware about it. And I want you to be able to pinpoint those things. And it is very uncomfortable. Shame is very uncomfortable. And it's something that even if you're aware of it, it'll take time to work through. Um, It can also show up in ways that make you question your abilities, make you question how you could be the best person, the smartest person in the room, and you'll question every move you make over the most mediocre people within your energetic sphere because you lack confidence or because you're insecure about it. And so it'll cause you to dim your light when you really need to be shining. There are people who will see your light, and I will say this over and over again. You will hear me say this. There are people who will see your light and use your light to find their way. And there will be people who will step into your light and only see their shadow, only see the shadow that you're casting, that really they're casting. But they will step into your light and only see themselves in your shadow, like they're the shadow that your light is creating on them. And none of that is your fault or your concern. A good way to get rid of insecurities is to stop caring about what people think about you. Period. Like, because it quite literally doesn't matter. When you like when you get to the place where you don't care what people think of you and you live for you and you live as a sovereign being and you work towards that and you live as the autonomous, powerful woman that you are, people will try to make you feel shitty for that. Please don't. It's not your problem. It's not your problem whether people love you. It's not your problem where people hate you. And once you can get to a place like that, oh, girl, oh, baby, oh, honey, sugar child, you winning at life, period. Go back to why. Think about why you feel the way that you do. Think about why you are feeling insecure. One of the first things that I ask is like, what's going on with you right now? What is making you feel? Why do you feel like this? Like, what is this reaction? Like, why is this necessary? Sometimes you end up saying, you know what? I feel like cussing somebody out today in the comment section, and I'm just gonna do that. And you do it. But you do it because you chose to. You don't do it because insecurities run your life and thus anger and fear and guilt and shame run your life and make the decisions for you. You thought about it. You said this ain't necessary, but I'm going to do it anyway. That's someone who is autonomous and sovereign and who do what they want. Period. So the only person that can fix your insecurities are you. If you wait on a significant other, a man, a spouse, a relative, your mama, your daddy, your uncles, your cousin, your sister, whoever, if you wait on your kids to fix your insecurities or to make you feel better about what's going on in your life, you're never going to feel better about it. The only person that can fix that is you, because I promise you, you can't fix nobody else. You can't make anybody else do anything, but you can fix you. You can fix your perception. Your perception will directly connect to your reality and you will call those things in. So, whenever you want to get rid of your insecurities, incorporate some of these steps and watch those insecurities float away. And even as new insecurities come, you know exactly what to do to get rid of them. Just understand that some things may be easier to get rid of than others. Um, People can't make you feel insecure unless you let them. And there is only one way to not let other people's insecurities or other people's, because most of the time people are operating from projection, which means their own bandwidth of understanding and their own securities, and they project that on you, is to not give a fuck. Like, that's the only reason. That's the only way, is to stop caring about what other people think about you. You can't take that to the bank and cash it. And even if you could, you don't benefit from prioritizing how other people feel about you over how you feel about you. And that means everybody. Nobody can get rid of your insecurities but you. You know, the road to not caring about what other people think can be long, it can be short. It depends on what the insecurity is. It depends on what the thing is that you're experiencing, what the issue is. It can be long, it could be short. It could take a day, it could take a year. It could take several years. But either way, depending on how much it affects you, depending on how long it's festered, it may take longer, but you can and you will do it. And an easy way to start doing it, to continue doing it, I should say, is by growing, by learning, by watching videos like this, by watching other women who talk about things like this and who give you ways to navigate your life, who give you ways to do the absolute best that you can. We don't let insecurities run us, period. I want to show y'all what the definition of perception is, because the definition of perception, and we'll talk about this a lot too, because perception is a very big part of our day to day. It's a very big part of who we are. And it's a very big part. It can really control our lives. And there's a definition of perception. So the definition of perception is the ability to see, hear, or become aware of something through the senses. I want to look up a specific definition, the psychology definition of perception, because and I wrote it down somewhere, I can't find it, but it said, and I wrote it in my notes. So let me try to find it, because I really want to read this definition of perception. Here it is. I found it. So the definition of perception is, from like a psychologist standpoint, the definition, and there is stages of perception too, which we'll go over in psychology, the psychology version of perception. So, well, first, let me define shame because we're still talking about shame, which leads to insecurities or can manifest from insecurity. So, shame is a feeling of humiliation or embarrassment. The perception, the perception of doing something dishonorable, immoral, or improper. Hmm? A lot of people feel shame about being queer, about coming out. A lot of people feel shame about having children out of wedlock. A lot of people have shame about not being married after at a certain age. A lot of people have shame about it's so many things you can have shame about that comes from that makes you feel dishonorable. If you don't make a certain amount of money, people can feel shame. And this is a big thing for men, right? I believe that this affect men a lot more than this affect women. Um, because a lot of people can experience shame from being impoverished, from not making a lot of money, from not elevating in their career. And it can manifest in a lot of ways. Like there's shame around deconstructing. If you grew up religious like I did, there's a lot of shame in coming to terms with the fact that you no longer believe in these things that you once held on too closely. Um, so that's the definition of shame, a feeling of humiliation, or embarrassment from being perceived, from the way other people are perceiving you, and then you perceive it as being dishonorable and it immoral or being doing something improper. And the definition of perception is an interpretation of sensory information in order to understand the presented information or environment. And I want y'all to really think about this. An interpretation of sensory information in order to understand the presented information or environment. So let's take any situation, insert any situation you're dealing with, you're struggling with right now, and think about it in terms of that definition and in terms of whoever you're concerned about, their view, how they will view you. Remember this definition. The five stages of perception is stimuli or stimulation, which is five senses perceive the issue. Formation differs between individuals because we have unique experience. The second stage is organization, processing the information, comparing existing knowledge with the stimuli. Okay, and stimuli. Remember, you know what your five senses are: smell, touch, taste, hear, see. Yes, feel. I think I said touch. Um, so processing. The second stage is processing. So the first stage is stimuli is what am I feeling? What am I seeing? What am I hearing? Right? And then you start to process, you start to organize, compartmentalize what you're hearing, what you're seeing. You can only do that with the information that you already have. That's the gag. So before you start feeling type of way about somebody's perception of your life or your choices, remember, they can only come from what they know. And a lot of us are a lot more naive and ignorant than we would like to admit. And a lot of us don't have the bandwidth we think we have. The fourth is memory, storage of one's experiences about the stimuli. Had you know, heard your parents say something about queer people? Have you heard your parents belittle somebody who had a baby out of wedlock? And then you find out you're pregnant and you're going back into the Rolodex and you remember those feelings, right? So, storage of one's experience is about how you felt in that moment when you were having an experience with someone who was, you know, putting out their opinion, their perception about a particular topic, a particular thing you're experiencing. So think about whatever it is you're experiencing and the moments in your life that you begin to develop feelings or triggers around different people discussing those things or people's opinions on them. The fifth stage of perception is recall, using the stored knowledge in the future, which kind of ties in with what I just said. Um, using all of these things to create a perception and create an opinion. And so this is a whole process. So whatever you're going through, think about the person that you're concerned how they're going to view you. Think about how limited their knowledge likely is on the topic, and then think about why you should give a fuck about what limited bandwidth opinion they formed their opinion with. Like, really sit and think about that, and you might laugh. If you are a queer person that's coming out or have it come out or are ready to come out, and you want to discuss certain things like um certain things like being able to live the life that you want, remember how much does the person you're scared to come out know about being queer? Like, really think about that. Like, Jesus. It's just froze. I'm sorry, y'all. I'll probably have to edit that out or something. But anyway, to finish my thought. Think about if you're queer and you want to come out, like, think about the limited knowledge like maybe your parents or your friends might have, especially if they're super heteronormative. Think about what little information they know and have about queer people. Most people know next to nothing, but have formed an entire opinion around why they think it's wrong with lies. And if you are of you have any esoteric knowledge, you have any higher consciousness, spiritual knowledge, then you know that most people don't even know. You know that the Bible or whatever excuses people use to be bigoted, to be bigots, are false, are based around false doctrines. Same thing goes with, say, um, being finding out you're pregnant or being pregnant out of wedlock or something like that. Or people judging you about being a single mom. Let's do that because that's a big topic people like to talk about for whatever reason. People judging you as a single mother, right? People don't know your story. They only know what lies and what misinformation they were fed about single mothers. You could be a single mother because you chose to, because you're rich and you went and got a donor. You could be a single mother because you got divorced. You can be a single mother because your partner passed away. You could be a single mother because you simply didn't want to, you know, co-parent. You could be a single mother because you had a child with somebody you once were in love with and they decided to up and leave you. There are a million reasons why you can be a single mother that people have no idea about and yet will form an entire opinion on you. And this is why you shouldn't even bother to care because people have no idea what they're talking about and they talk anyway. Like, it's quite people's perception is quite literally a personal experience for them that has nothing to do with you. The only thing they know is that you have a child and you're raising that child by yourself. That's literally the only information that they know, but yet have formed an entire opinion about who you are. Anybody ignorant enough to do that don't deserve your energy of arguing with them, and they certainly don't deserve your energy of trying to defend yourself. Block them out your life, off your social media, wherever. How can someone tell you about you more than you? They can't. Okay, period. Like, that's it. They can only say what they think about what they know. Remember this when people try to make you feel insecure. They can only they can only come up from a place. They can only come from a place from their experience. Unless they walked in your shoes, they cannot formulate an opinion about your life unless you ask them. That is the only time you should care. They cannot formulate an opinion that you should care about unless you let them. Okay? Listen, another good example for this is for me. This is the thing that I work through with my body image. If you are bigger than you want to be, or if you are smaller than you want to be, there are a lot of people who have their own securities and their own ignorance and bias. And they will project that onto you if you're plus size or whatever, if you're in a bigger body. And the only thing they know about you is that you have a bigger body. They don't know how you got that bigger body. They don't know what you have going on, what ailments you have, what relationship that you have, food trauma. They don't know any. And yet they will form an opinion about you. And I'll say one thing about people that comment on people's physical appearance, because this is one of my moral stances. I do not comment on people's physical appearance ever. Very rarely will I ever comment. I always like to give myself room to wiggle and grow. Very rarely will you ever hear me comment about somebody's physical appearance. I don't care what they said and what they did, because that is one of my moral stances. Because you know why? Sorry. It doesn't matter. Like, what else is there to say? People know nothing about you and will formulate an opinion. Okay? People look to recharge from you. If they are feeling some type of way about their life, they will project that onto you and talk about their insecurities, that things they haven't worked out on you, and it don't have anything to do with you. Try not to be offended. We're human, we get our feelings hurt. Try not to be offended. People like that are low vibrational, and they come from a place of lack. And it is very easy to sink vibration rather than a way to bring people up to your vibration. So don't bother. Don't bother with block them. Block them from your life in real life, block them from social media. Y'all, we'll talk about this some more, but I thank you so much if you made it to the end of this video, to the end of this podcast. Remember the things that I said. Go back and watch it, rewind it, take notes, write it down. These things will be pivotal for you to get to the place that you want to be in your life. Again, my name is Danielle Virgo. This is the Conscious Yogi Podcast. Our pose for the day is goddess, and I'm going to insert that because we want to come into our goddess energy where we don't give a fuck, because we are powerful beings and we know that. I love y'all so much. Wherever you are in the world, have a good day, a good evening, good night, good morning, and I love you.